the usual High Court battle. Two caterpillars fighting it out, Colin and Cuthbert. Marks and Spencer has started legal action against Aldi in an effort to protect its own Colin the Caterpillar cake. M&S says Aldi's Cuthbert Caterpillar infringes its trademark. How are we going to sort this out? Josh Schuermann is an associate solicitor at the specialist intellectual property firm Briffa, where he advises clients on disputes. He joins me now. Joshua, is there room for more than one caterpillar cake?
Thank you. I mean, it looks like there's room for plenty of caterpillar cake. You see all of these, the different supermarkets, all of which seem to have their own take on the theme. But I think the interesting thing to remember, and the way that intellectual property law works, is that because it's not the ideas that are protected by IP law, the idea of having a cake shaped as a caterpillar isn't in itself something that any one party can claim ownership to. But it's the expression of that idea which becomes protected if one party feels that their expression of this idea has been copied or replicated or is otherwise being unlawfully relied upon, which is what's happened here. So you have M&S feeling that their rights have been infringed.
I'm struggling to understand the difference in the concept between idea and expression of an idea. Is that to do with the fact that they've got similar names? If Aldi had chosen the name Neil, Doug or Bill for its caterpillar cake, would that have been better than Cuthbert?
Well, I guess taking a step back, the first thing you need to do when you look at an intellectual property dispute is to identify which form of intellectual property you consider as being infringed. In this case, because M&S seems to be relying on their registered trademark portfolio, the first thing to do is to look at what those trademarks actually cover. So they do have a trademark for the name Colin the Caterpillar. Right. So as a starting... I didn't know it was so important for them. I mean, I hate to say it, it's just a cake. That is part of the beauty of intellectual property. Things that seem mundane and people might think, well, it's just a tiny aspect and who cares? But it's when it's your own creation, when it's something that you have come up with and you have invested a lot of time and effort and money into promoting and developing, it is something that people quite rightfully will feel they want to protect.
So, sorry, just to jump in, let's say I go to Aldi and I fancy buying a Cuthbert the Caterpillar cake. I know what I'm doing. I know I'm buying Cuthbert, not Colin. Why would M&S be worried about me going into Aldi, getting confused with Marks and Spencer cake sold in a different store, when the fact is there are more than one cake, just as there's more than one cola, there's more than one chocolate bar?
Sure. Now that, as it were, is in this case the million-dollar question. It's without going into the intricacies of how trademark infringement and the tort of passing off, which is what they are claiming, how those were established. One of the main questions which would be determined at trial, if it ever went that far, would be whether there is a real risk of confusion in the eyes of the consumer. Meaning, in the scenario you've just described, if you walk into a shop, if you buy Cuthbert the Caterpillar, is it reasonable to suggest that you thought you were buying Colin the Caterpillar and you've just made a mistake because you've been willfully misled by Aldi's clever marketing? Or in fact, do you know exactly what you're doing and do you know that this is just a slightly cheeky, similar product, but you know, and everybody involved in the transaction knows, you're not actually buying Colin the Caterpillar? Now, M&S are obviously going to argue that they are towing, that Aldi are towing and have in fact crossed that line. Aldi, and this is their modus operandi across a number of ranges, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Aldi's and other discounters' approach to this, is that they give consumers these visual hints, which they say suggest, they're evocative of certain products which are well known to consumers, but Aldi's position is that this doesn't in fact infringe any intellectual property rights.
Joshua Schuermann, when we get to the next stage of the cake wars, we'll come back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No one can doubt the impact the pandemic with